All right, let's do this here. The chat will be paused until the lesson is done, and afterwards, I'll be more than glad to answer any questions you all might have. Uh, this Sabbath, I would like to say, as we always mention on the Sabbath, all praises be to the Most High, in the name of His Son, Yeshua, the Savior. I want to say shalom to the brothers and sisters worldwide. And today we're going to go into a lesson called Mystery of the Gentiles. And when I say Mystery of the Gentiles, we're going to bring some history books out to prove to you beyond any shadow of a doubt that the North American Indians and the tribes that were conquered by the Europeans, by Esau, are and is in fact the lost tribes of Israel. Now, in order to do so, we must first go into the prophecies, and we're gonna go into some books also, but we're gonna go into some prophecies. Why? Not too many, but there is some people who are now claiming that the lost tribes of Israel, or the 10 tribes that left Assyria, are black people only, or Negroids only. Now, after this lesson, we will make it crystal clear that not only is that false, we're going to also, in case some of you may run into some of these lessons out there that's claiming that only black people are from the lost tribes, that you'll be able to pose certain questions to them that come with these theories that they will never be able to answer. Like I said, we made a lesson not too long ago breaking out the lost tribes of Israel, which was the 12 lost tribes found, predominantly dealing with prophecy concerning the lost tribes, or the tribes that were in North, Central, and South America, that made it to North, Central, and South America. Now we all know that Israel will be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So now, while our brothers and sisters will be finding out who we are predominantly in the areas we've taught in the past, we will come with future lessons of the Israelites who are scattered in other areas, who are suffering or have suffered the same atrocities as the Negro. They may not look exactly like us, but they have suffered the same atrocities according to prophecy. We're going to use some historical books today also. And one book we're going to use, probably reference a little bit from, is The American Holocaust. Now, the information of the American Holocaust have everything to do with the suffering of Baliqua Taino Indians and others who were suffering by the hands of the Romans before we as a people got to or inhabited America through slave ships. Now, there's some other, I would say, misnomers, or I would say incorrect analysis concerning what happened in the Americas as far as prophecy. When you look at Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, most people out there teaching would like to emphasize strictly on slave ships. When the slave ships is one of many prophecies. All right? Not to say that the North American Indians and the Baliqua Taino Indians and those of North, Central, and South America, which we know are the lost sheep, not to say that they didn't suffer slave ships also. And I'm mentioning this because we know that when the conquistadors came over to South America, they took families by the hundreds on ships back to Spain. to work in the policies, to work under the queen, to operate and work as servitude for the people in Spain. But let's not put the cart before the horse. The majority of the information that you may read, that you may see today and read through scriptures today, a lot of the information that we have today have been punctuated through a lesson we did years ago called the 12 Lost Tribes Found. It cannot be disputed when you look at the history of the tribes of Israel that scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, predominantly the ones that came into North, Central, and South America, cannot be disputed on a on scriptural basis. Now, without any further ado, we're going to go into it. One other thing we're going to point out is the deceivers. The deceivers are the German philosophers and conquerors under the Masonic order who had a purpose intent to hide the truth of the lost tribes of Israel for not only political reasons, but for spiritual reasons also. Because the same people who are lying on the lost tribes of Israel, I'm talking about those of elite status, those that are lying on these lost tribes of Israel are predominantly those that are claiming to be Jews. What happens? Our people who finally find that we fit the mold of the lost tribes of Israel, we endear ourselves to that history and look to exclude the other lost tribes. You understand? And they cleave to some of the same faulty history that was put out there to distort and misdirect the truth concerning the lost tribes. So this Sabbath, we're going to go into the lost tribes of Israel. And before we're done, of course, we're going to touch on a few other mentions. But I would like to talk about this because there's a lot of misinformation that's being taught. And it's not, this misinformation is not really aimed at those who understand the book. The misinformation that's out there is predominantly aimed towards those who are new learners, those that recently came into the truth, to confuse you before you're rooted in understanding and studying things yourself. So they don't target those who already understand. All right? And some of the people that are putting out this misinformation are fairly new in the understanding themselves. And instead of being humble enough to go through the vocation and wait on their ministry, they go forward with anything they might see that's groundbreaking and just run with it without even thinking about the consequences, number one. Number two, they're not thinking that once it's shown to be false, they're not thinking like, okay, well, what am I going to do now with this faulty information? I should have been patient. But it's okay. We just here to set the record straight that the 12 lost tribes of Israel are not just black people. We're going to set the record straight. They're people of color. Right? So let's first begin with people in general. All people came from who? Noah, right? Matter of fact, go to 2nd Esdras 6 and 54 first. Let's start with Adam. Let's start with Adam. Now we're gonna break this down today on an elementary level, brothers and sisters. Today, on a very elementary level. This way, even the newest of persons would know that the 12 tribes of Israel are not just black people or people of color. Right? Let's go there. Second
Uh,
Ezra 6 and 54.
2nd Ezra chapter 6 verse 54.
Go ahead.
And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all,
We all come from Adam,
and the people also whom thou hast chosen.
and whom the people also whom the Most High have chosen.
All this I have spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes.
Go ahead.
As for the other people,
As for the other people,
which also come of Adam,
which also come of Adam,
thou hast said they are nothing,
the Most High said that they are nothing but what?
but be like unto spittle.
And when he says they're nothing, it means they're not accounted for God's chosen people. That means when you look at prophecy and the prophecies concerning this earth, you must first pinpoint and identify God's people. The whole earth and all the actions of prophecy surrounds these particular people. Period. That means you cannot be looking at prophecies concerning other people to know exactly what time we're in. You must focus on the chosen people. So the Most High is telling us through prophecy, through the book, we don't need to focus on any other people to understand the prophecies. He only chose one people whom he would give his law, statutes, and commandments to. And all the other nations are really not in this equation. Now, because of this, the other nations, because they're not of the chosen stock that receive the law, statutes, and commandments, they have what you would call alternative pagan or Canaanite religions. They worship fallen angels. They worship demons, devils, other gods. But our God, the God of the Hebrews, is separated from them. Right? That's why he says they are nothing. But going back to the original point, that all nations come of Adam. Now we know that there was a flood. When you read Genesis, the 6th chapter, Noah is warned to build an ark. Right? Now when Noah was commanded to build the ark, it was him, his wife, his 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and they had 3 sons. Now when you go into Genesis, the 1st chapter, Adam, whom all people came from, was made from the dust of the ground. Ground is different shades of brown. He was made from dirt. Okay? That means all people would come out with some level of hue or some level of some color with them. Right? So when Noah was on the scene, let's read it.
This is Genesis chapter 9, verse 18 through 19.
Go ahead.
And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth.
And Japheth.
And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread.
And with these 3 sons of Noah, the whole earth was what?
Was overspread.
Was overspread, which means the son that came out of Adam that would continue to reprocreate the earth after the flood is Noah. Noah, who came from one that was made out of the ground. So yes, Noah was a man of color. He was a black man who bare 3 separate children: Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Now Japheth is predominantly, well, they are the Asian people that was on one side of the Mediterranean that goes into Greece and to all the areas up into Asia. Shem, when he settled, the Most High gave him land on the other side of the Mediterranean, which was Saudi Arabia, the Middle East. Ham was given what? Yes, he was given North Africa. These 3 sons all came from one black man. Now, even though they may look different, they all came from one black man. So there is some truth when they say the original man was black. That is truth, but it wasn't bones that was found 100 billion years ago. The black man that bear all civilization, when you look before the flood, is Adam. The black man that bear all of civilization, that would be after the flood, would be our father Noah. See how this works? So now we understand that all ethnicity, no matter what color you are, still come from a chosen seed, which is the bearer or the forebearer, or what you would call the progenitor of all races we see today. There is no new races. Right? Now, out of Noah's sons, the Most High chose Shem. Out of Shem, he chose Abraham. Out of Abraham, he chose Jacob. Out of Jacob, out of Abraham, he chose, Isaac. And out of Isaac, he chose Jacob, which bear the 12 tribes of Israel. Right? Now, still, these are all people of color. As you know, based on our prior lessons, there was no such thing as what we would call a modern day European or a modern day Caucasoid or Caucasian. There was no such people until Rebecca, a black woman, had Jacob and Esau. And that's how the Bible breaks down families. Now, if you begin to try to go into science to break down ethnicities, you'll begin to falter. That's where you will falter. All ethnicities and bloodlines and genealogies is in the Bible. Now, of course, the scientists, those that are looking to lie and take your identity, have put out false information that would direct you into believing the true children of Israel are not the true children of Israel. And in place, by default, since everyone is arguing who the 12 tribes are, they have now taken a position that belongs to us. And see, it's the old bait and switch. It's the old misdirection. They'll misdirect you to argue who the 12 tribes are, while they are assuming the position of all of them. So I thought that we would go into a lesson, the mystery of the Gentiles today. To break down what that mystery really is. To show you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that the curses and prophecies not only is on us people. We can't deny they're on us. Big time. All right? And to some degree, we're more magnified because it tells you Judah would be at the neck of his enemy. Which means everywhere the enemy is, Judah would be there. So prominently, you would see more of what's going on with Judah opposed to the other tribes that are scattered, that are actually suffering more than Judah right now. Mm-hmm. I don't see too many people right now crying for the Filipinos who was hit with those storms, because you don't believe they belong to you. You don't believe they belong to the Most High. You don't believe the destructions in the earth are aimed towards destroying God's people. But when you look at these weather weapons and all these things they're using, all these weapons are used to continue to scatter and to destroy the children of Israel. That's the focal point of prophecy. But let's not get too far there. Let's get strictly into scriptures now. Right? Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. And I'm going here because we're told that only black people that suffered the captivity, the transatlantic slave trade, suffer the curses of Deuteronomy 28. And that cannot be further from the truth. So what we're going to do is we're going to read Deuteronomy 28. Now, we know that according to 2 Esdras 13 and 39, that the lost tribes went over into, you got it, the new world, a land where never mankind dwelt. Let's get that real quick, and then we read in Deuteronomy 28. I'm going to break this down nice and slow for you.
2 Esdras chapter 13, verse 39.
Go ahead.
And whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him,
Go ahead.
those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land, in the time of Hosea, whom Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, led away captive. And he carried them over the waters.
And he carried them over the waters. Now what happens? In 721 BC, the northern kingdom was taken out of the land. You can read this in 2 Kings 17. And was replaced by Gentiles. These were the dispersed of the northern kingdom who fell through the sins of Solomon. Now, their captivity and destruction actually happened years before ours. They have suffered many atrocities. That's not documented because we only focus on the prophecies that are concerning us. That's that divide and conquer. Don't forget, Christ told us, and he made it clear, a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Right? Read.
And he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land.
Go ahead.
But they took this counsel among themselves.
They took this counsel among themselves.
That they would leave the multitude of the heathen.
That they would leave the multitude of the heathen.
And go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
And go to another country where never mankind dwelt. Now we know this must be the new world because at this time of prophecy, 2nd Esdras, we all knew of the lands that was given to Ham, Shem, and Japheth. See that? That's Africa, that's the Middle East, and that's Europe and Asia. So the only lands which no mankind knew at this time were the Americas. And there's documented proof in Lost Tribes of the Promised Land with the Dialis, the actual memoirs of Christopher Columbus, using the Apocrypha as an instruction map. A geographical map to not find some land, but to actually find the lost sheep who would actually be people used to build their new world. What better people to find to build their empire than the people who built Egypt? All right. So when they came, when the conquistadors and Christopher Columbus started traveling, their whole mindset was to find the lost sheep that left in second. And now we were still in Judea at this time. I mean, earlier we were in Judea when the northern kingdom was taken out. So by the time they began to go search, we were still somewhat intact. Especially in Africa, we were still together, but not the 10 tribes. The 10 tribes were scattered almost 800 years before Christ. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Deuteronomy 28 real quick and show you some of the prophecies. And you tell me, does that only link to black people? Now, not to say it don't, because a lot of prophecies do link to us. Not to say they're just the 10 tribes. But you're going to find that these prophecies that are on us are also on the other tribes. Someone made a statement. I think some brother left a statement on our site that said that North American Indians got casinos, so they can't be the 12 tribes. They can't be the lost sheep. I'm like, what? I'm like, so that's how you measure who an Israelite is? Based on whether or not you have some type of entrepreneurship? Are you kidding me? Well, Oprah Winfrey, she can't be Israel now. She owned a serious communication conglomerate. And what she make a year is more than what one of these guys can make with one of these casinos. Okay. She make what? How many billions of years she makes? That means she's not an Israelite? So they're measuring things ignorantly instead of through prophecy. How much do Michael Jordan make a year? Does that mean he's not an Israelite? How much do Jay-Z make a year? Does that mean he's not an Israelite? So people are measuring things ignorantly, claiming that none of these tribes have suffered what we've suffered. Total ignorance. Total ignorance. So let's go through some of the prophecies and some secular history to prove to you that the other tribes that suffered in North, Central, and South America have suffered the same atrocities as us. Now, some people may say, well, what's going on with them now? It seems like they are more to do and more together than black people. Well, that's true. Why? Because they were already conquered by the time we got to the Americas. They were infiltrated and conquered and destroyed. And we look so much into our Holocaust that we ignore theirs. We ignore their Holocaust. There was an American Holocaust before black people came to the shores of America in the belly of ships. Right? Let's read it.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1.
Matter of fact, let's go straight to the curses. Start 15.
Verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power.
Now at this time, all Israel was together.
To observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all the curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
All these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Let's go through some of the curses.
Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
You shall be in the city and in the field. Go ahead.
Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store.
Thy basket and thy store, which means you will not run anything financially.
Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land.
The fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land. That means your children will be cursed coming in the earth. Read.
The increase of thy kind and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest out, when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out.
You will be cursed when you're born, all the way to death. Read.
The Lord shall send upon thee curses, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed.
Until thou be destroyed. Well, guess what? We're in November, right? What day is coming up? So-called Thanksgiving in America? I guess Thanksgiving, the celebration of the North American Indians being slaughtered, is not a prophecy concerning, according to the Bible, right? Matter of fact, let's get some prophecies on Gad real quick, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's get the one in Psalms. And let's also get the one where it showed you in Deuteronomy 33, where they cut their hand for a peace pact. Let's get that too. Someone tell me if this is not the North American Indians here. Genesis the 49th chapter tells us that a troop shall overtake Gad, but he shall overcome in the end. What troop overtook Gad? The North American cavalry. It took them a long time to take down Gad, the Masons. But they had to first lie on the Gadites and make everyone believe they were savages, when there was information getting back to Europe that these were in fact parts of the 10 tribes of Israel. Right? Let's get some prophecies. Deuteronomy 33. Let's read it.
Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 20.
Go ahead.
And of Gad he said,
And of Gad he said,
Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad.
Go ahead.
He dwelleth as a lion,
He dwelleth as a lion.
and teareth the arm with the crown of the head.
He teareth the arm with the crown of the head. The chief would take a feather out of the crown of their head, and cut their hands as a peace pact. As a peace pact to extend peace and brotherhood to those that they now deem friends. Now that's in North American history. That's in North American Indians' history, that they would cut their hand with the crown. That means those big feather crowns. They would take one of the feathers out, cut their hand, and shake for alliances and peace pacts. Now that's a prophecy concerning who? The tribe of Gad, the North American Indians. Here's another prophecy. Read.
Psalms chapter 55, verse 20.
Go ahead.
He hath put forth his hand against such as be at peace with him.
It's talking about Esau. He hath put forth his hand as those that was at peace with him. Look how many peace treaties the North American Indians signed with them, and they broke every last one. Read.
He hath broken his covenant.
And they broke their agreement. Why? The North American Indians taught them how to operate on the land. And they would make one agreement and say, well, you can stay in this area. You stay on your side and we stay on our side. The North American Indians, they would push them further and further and further back until they were destroyed, until they was on reservations. North American Indians are not Judah. They're Gad. Read.
Verse 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
But war was in his heart.
But war was in his heart.
His words were softer than oil.
It's talking about Esau's conversation with our brethren.
Yet
using psychology. Soft words as if they're not looking to destroy. Read.
Yet were they swords, drawn swords.
But the conquistadors was ready for death. They were ready for war. They was ready to kill. See? Now let's go back to Deuteronomy 28.
Deuteronomy chapter 28.
Let's go through them.
This is verse 20. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do.
Go ahead.
Until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it.
Go ahead.
The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption and with a fever.
Of consumption and a fever. Now, if you look at history, there was a time in which the Europeans who came over to the Americas was putting smallpox and different diseases in blankets. See? Would cause types of illnesses, fevers. They didn't suffer these curses. Now, they don't have to use blankets anymore. The new way of warfare against us is vaccines. But it's still the same result. It's death, destruction, eugenics, total killing of the 12 tribes of Israel. Right? Read.
And inflammation, and with an extreme burning.
Inflammation and what extreme burning? Now we all know we go through inflammation and extreme burning. Why? Because that's part of the curse that happened to us. By the nations overcoming us, taking us down, and placing and putting these diseases on us. Weapon warfare. Okay? Chemical warfare. Okay? Bio warfare. These are curses that happened to the North American Indians, as well as us. Read.
And with the sword.
And with the sword. The conquistadors came over with the sword to kill. Now, I need you to read something out of American Holocaust concerning the Baliqua Taino Indians of Puerto Rico. Let's read it. The part you had earlier before we began.
This is just one reference.
Let's read that reference.
This is
What page you want?
This is the prologue, page X or 10. It says, just 21 years after Columbus's first landing in the Caribbean, the vastly populous island that the explorer had renamed Hispaniola was effectively desolate. Nearly 8 million people, those Columbus chose to call Indians, had been killed by violence.
Read it again.
Those who Columbus chose to call Indians.
Those who Columbus chose to call Indians
had been killed by violence.
Have been killed by violence, by Esau. Read.
Disease. And despair.
And despair.
It took a little longer about the span of a single human generation, but what happened on Hispaniola was the equivalent of more than 50 Hiroshimas.
More than 50 Hiroshimas happened. Give me the millions that died there under their hands.
This is 8 million.
8 million. 8 million died. 8 million brothers and sisters died. That was before we came to the Americas. These are our people, the Baliqua Taino Indians. Did they not suffer in the curse? All right. I know we like to just focus on our connection, but listen, there's 12 tribes. And don't forget, one of the curses is Israel shall be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So if we are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, eventually, through time, some of the families, through men having babies with their women, some of their babies will look like the other nations, but they're still Israel nonetheless. Okay? Well, let's get to it. Some more curses.
Verse 23.
And listen, we didn't even get to the slave ships yet. See? All of the 12 tribes of Israel suffered curses. The only tribe out of all the tribes of Israel that didn't suffer the same curses are Dan, because they are now under the Gentiles. Dan was the only one that kept some similitude of power when Israel fell. Till this day. Finish reading.
Verse 23. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron.
Go ahead.
The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all kingdoms of the earth.
Read it again.
And shalt be removed into all kingdoms of the earth.
Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel, would be removed into what?
All kingdoms of the earth.
All kingdoms of the earth. Now, what people will say is, those that are claiming that Israel is all black, is, yeah, they are scattered throughout all the kingdoms, but they're black people that are in those kingdoms. All right, I need you to distinguish which black people you're speaking of that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, who are Gad, who are Manasseh, who are Ephraim, who are Naphtali, on and on and on. You can't. You will not be able to. So that's another question you have to put out to some of these people who are claiming that these are black people that was from the 10 tribes that scattered. Were they dark? Were they people of color? Absolutely. But they didn't look exactly like Judah. They still had different features. Okay? You can't distinguish who the 10 tribes are. And if you can't distinguish them, why did the Most High give their father Jacob on his deathbed in Genesis, give them commandments of what would befall each child in the last days? if you wouldn't be able to distinguish them during the end times. There's no way you can pinpoint who's who at all. These people that are claiming that Israel is all black people and Negroid features, not one of them can distinguish who the 12 tribes are. Then how can you relate the prophecies of their people concerning the last days that was given to their fathers? How would you be able to do that? And I'm still waiting for someone that's claiming that they're all black, they're all Negroes. I'm waiting for someone to break that down. If what we're saying is incorrect, then the 10 tribes are not part of the nation of Israel, then I need someone to come out and show us who are the 10 tribes today, where they went, what are their names, who are their families, according to prophecy. But they will not be able to. The only thing they will be able to do is try to look at something and find a point of argument or find a point to try to tear down something. But they'll never bring anything to show who these people are. Now, in order for you to actually break something down or tear it down, you must know what's in place. You must understand what was there, or you're unqualified. You can't say, well, it's not. I don't know what it is, but it's not. Okay? Finish reading prophecies.
Verse 26. And thy carcass shall be meat unto the fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, wherefore thou canst not be healed. The Lord shall smite.
That's smallpox, ain't it? Read it again.
And the Lord shall smite thee with the botch of Egypt.
The botch of Egypt.
And with the emerods, and with the scab.
The scabs.
And with the itch.
The itch.
Whereof thou canst not be healed.
Whereas thou canst not be healed. That's the same disease as smallpox that was given to the North American Indians and other tribes. Bio-warfare against the 10 tribes of Israel. And to some degree, in a lot of these vaccines, they be shooting a lot of that stuff in people today. In which there's no pandemic at all. There have never been a pandemic. All through history, all their pandemics been false flags and ways of population control and ways of disease in our people, and not have the public pushback against them. They made people believe that things were broken out and there was some organic disease developed from nowhere. No, all these diseases were created by sorcerers, whom today are called chemists, as weapons against the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered throughout the 4 corners of the earth. Not just black people that came over in ships. Okay? Finish reading.
28. The Most High shall smite thee with madness.
With madness.
And blindness.
And blindness.
And astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
Thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled forevermore.
Thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled forevermore.
And no man shall save thee.
And no man shall save thee. Look at what's going on. Go on some of those reservations in North America. And you tell me these people are prospering. These people are suffering. Okay, matter of fact, casinos is actually a weapon to degenerate the area. It takes away the little money people have. It's only a weapon. Every place where they're imploding or destroying an economy, they put up a casino. Why? Because people are suffering and they're looking to try their luck someplace to come up, to make an ends meet. And that's another ploy to actually degenerate the people quicker. It's a tax on the people. They're just playing games, but they don't know that their money, that it was a targeted depletion of funds that will cause more crime. No money, lose your money, go into depression, start stealing, killing, start destroying people amongst you, Read.
Verse.
And I've been on reservations. You go on the reservations, and guess what? I'm gonna tell you. These people, our North American Indians and others who are suffering, are in a worse case than our people over here, our people that went to America. In some cases, you go into Mexico, into Mexico City, on the back streets, and look at how our brothers are living back. You can't say that these people are somebody else. They're not living like the other nations. They're suffering. They were taken over by the Catholic Church. It wasn't the conquistadors didn't come over and inhabit Mexico, and the Spaniards didn't inhabit Mexico and make Mexico. These people were there already. They were conquered by the Spaniards, suffering the curses written in Deuteronomy 28. Eventually, they were compromised, and the Spaniards put their ideology and religion amongst our people. That's why in South America it's predominantly Catholic. But before that, our people in the Americas, the North American Indians, the conquistadors, the Balicotinos, the Puerto Ricans, even the people that was in the Fiji Islands, even the people that were in Hawaii, had a strong culture that connected directly back to the biblical 10 tribes of Israel. Even the people in Australia. Look at the Holocaust and the destruction of our people, Naphtali, that suffered in, you got it, Australia, by the hands of the British. See, we're so compartmentalized, especially living in America and being distracted, we only focus on ourselves and not realize that these same atrocities are happening to our brothers and sisters on a global scale. Finish reading.
Verse 30. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her.
You shall be engaged with a wife, and another man shall lie with her. That was you got it, the conquistadors and the Europeans coming over, conquering the North American Indians, conquering those people, killing the men, dealing with the wives. That didn't just happen to black people in slavery. It just happened to black people in slavery. Now, that is a prophecy concerning us, but it's not exclusive. It's all the tribes. These curses are on all the tribes of Israel. Right? Read.
Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein.
That means those that are left after the slaughter will be used to build the society of the Masons, the Masonic structure, in which they would come in, pray to their God, which they call Jabulon, and put a chief cornerstone in any area they're looking to build, and have the children of Israel build their empire. Now, this happened all in North, Central, and South America. Okay? Read. Before blacks got there, before blacks were taken over to the Americas, we were still kings in Africa. We were still living pretty good in Africa while this suffering was going on in the 1400s and the 1500s, all the way up to the 1800s against the North American Indians. What do you think the American-Mexican Revolution was about? The war against the Mexicans. What do you think that was about? That was the Masonic conquistadors, the Masonic Jewish powers constructing their war against Israel, against Issachar. Okay? Finish reading.
And thou shalt be only of Salakia. And thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
Go ahead.
The ox shall be slain before thine eyes.
Was the buffalo slain by the North American Indians? Or did the Europeans come over and slay their buffalo so that they couldn't have no food through the winter? Happy Thanksgiving. This is what happened to the tribe of Gad in America. After the Gadites taught the Europeans how to fish, how to do certain things, how to live through the winter, how to even take the beef and make beef jerky so that they can eat through the wintertime, how to use the buffalo skin for to weatherize their tents and use as clothing. They taught the Europeans how to live in this cold climate. The cold climate in America. Remember? So their buffalo was slayed as a war tactic against them. That was before Negroes came to the Americas. Read.
Thou shalt plant a vineyard and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
That means that we'll be hired to plant their gardens and have to pick their peas, their cotton. That happened to the North American Indians and the other tribes too, brothers and sisters. Okay? Read.
Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes,
The buffalo.
and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee.
And that's talking about the donkeys and all the animals that we were utilizing and the Indians were utilizing to do what? To work the land so that they can have their own food, so that they can build their own society and keep their society going and feed those of their tribes. So they took the means to self-sustain from those people, which are our people. See? That curse comes on us. That curse is not on Japheth. Okay? That curse is not on Japheth, which are the Asians. All right? Read.
And shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them.
Go ahead.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given to another people.
Thy sons and daughters shall be given to another people. And it's in this book here. Get it yourself, American Holocaust, how they went and took some of the people by the hundreds, some areas by the thousands, in ships back to Spain. Okay? To serve the Edomites in Europe. So blacks weren't the only people taken in slave ships either. Now we're the most prominent in history when counting the numbers. We were the greater in number to be taken in captivity through slave ships. But this happened also to the North American Indians. It happened also to the Baliqua Taino Indians. Taken back and sold over in Europe. Read.
And thine eyes shall look, and fill with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand.
Go ahead.
The fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up.
So read it again.
The fruit of thy land
The fruit of thy land
and all thy labors
and all thy labors.
shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up.
A nation thou knowest not eat up. Now back then when we understood who we were, we knew all the nations, didn't we? We knew where Ham was. We knew where Shem was. We knew where Japheth was. So it was speaking a future state and some people who would come whom we don't know and would overtake us and destroy us. That happened through time after our people lost their identity. Don't forget, the North American Indians were over into America well before Christ was on the scene. You talk about around 718 BC, about 1,000 years before Christ came on the scene. They were already in the America. So through time, they lost connection with the old world. The North American Indians, the so-called Puerto Ricans, they named them Puerto Ricans. These are all names that was given them by their conquerors. The conquerors gave them these names. The North American Indians didn't name themselves North American Indians. The people that's in the Puerto Rican Isles didn't name themselves Puerto Ricans. Those were titles put on them by the conqueror. Now let's see who conquered them. We're going to go there in a moment. Read.
Verse 33. The fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always.
Thou shalt be what?
Oppressed
Only oppressed
and crushed always.
So the oppression is on all 12 tribes. See that? Now let's go to I will send a people against you as quick as the eagle flieth.
This is verse 49.
Let's go there.
The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far,
From far,
from the end of the earth,
from the end of the earth,
as swift as the eagle flieth.
as swift as the eagle flieth. The eagle represents Edom from the book of Obadiah. So that means Edom would take over the children of Israel. So who took over the North American Indians? The eagle, Rome. Who took over the Baliquatino Indians in Puerto Rico? The eagle, Rome. There's no prophecy where it says the eagle would take over Japheth, would take over another people. You understand? Where's the prophecy where the eagle or Rome would come over to a new land where never mankind dwelt and take over Japheth? So if these people that suffered by the hand of the eagle are not Israelites that were living in the new world, then who are they? And where's the prophecy of the Roman eagle coming to take down other nations outside of Israel and enslave them and have them build their cities? Where are the prophecies? They're not in Scripture. There's no place in the Bible you can find that information at all. Nowhere. Because the prophecies are not against the other nations. The prophecies were against the lost tribes of Israel. Hope this is resonating with you here. Now when you read Deuteronomy 28, we can go on and on and on. And they relate to not only the Negroes that came over on the slave ships. And we know that all ethnicity of people, be it whether they are Asian looking, whether they are Arabian looking, the Middle Eastern looking, or whether they are black, they all come from Noah, right? Now let's go into some history. Before we go into this, I'm going to show you what you can't use to identify the lost sheep of Israel. What was Timothy warned of? Let's go there real quick. Let's get Colossians. This is what you can't use in identifying. Now, why was I able to use American Holocaust? Why do we use lost tribes in the Promised Land? Because that's documented history that links directly with Scripture. These are fulfillment of prophecies identifying the lost sheep. But what we can't use to identify the lost tribes of Israel. So if anybody, brothers and sisters, come to you with this information, I'm talking about information outside of we're saying, but come with information that we were warned from listening to, and you follow it, that's on you. But what does the Scripture say we must be warned of concerning this? Read.
Colossians chapter 2 verse 8.
Read.
Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy
and
vain deceit.
That means philosophers will come in and distort the truth of the Bible concerning prophecy and God's people also. Now, we're going to name some of these philosophers today. The originators of the philosophers, the original philosophers that will have us today confused concerning the lost sheep. Read.
Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy
and what?
And vain deceit.
And vain deceit.
After the tradition of men.
After the tradition of men.
After the rudiments of the world.
The rudiments of the world.
And not after Christ.
Not after Christ. Now let's go to Timothy.
1 Timothy 6 and 20.
Go ahead.
Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust.
Keep that which is committed to thy trust, Timothy.
Avoiding profane and vain babblings.
Avoiding what?
Profane and vain babblings.
Profane and vain babblings.
And oppositions of science falsely so called.
In opposition of what?
And oppositions of science, falsely so called.
Oppositions of science, falsely so called. Which means the enemy would try to use science to distort the knowledge of the truth. Concerning what? The Bible. Why do you think Timothy is writing about this tactic in the Bible? That means philosophers and scientists would try to come up with alternative information that would have us confused concerning the people and the purpose of the Bible. See? We're going to go through a few of these philosophers and scientists because I believe, according to the Bible, that no matter if you're Asian, no matter if you are African, and no matter if you're Middle Eastern, Ham, Shem, or Japheth, that all three came from one black man. Now, that's what the Bible tells me. I'm not going into science concerning that. I know that according to the Bible. I know that all races of people come out of Adam, one black man. I also know that it's impossible for anyone which is a clean leper or who is white to have people of color. So all nations must come out of what? A black man. Just that we in the Bible believe it's Adam and later Noah after the flood. Scientists believe something different. Philosophers believe something different. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to turn this all the way around. Why? Because when the Masons came to the New World, Thomas Jefferson paid some researchers to go in and operate amongst the North American Indians to find out who they were and what was their purpose as far as culture and religion. Now that spawned speculation at that time that the 10 lost tribes, well, at least one of them, have been found. And I'm going to show you how the philosophers came in and said, well, nobody. We can't have these people be identified as the lost sheep of Israel because we have blood on our hands. Suppose that all the people back in Europe believe that we are slaughtering the people of the Bible. So they had to come up with some philosophies to minimize the North American Indians and those people whom they conquered worth. They had to make them appear as savages, so they used science and philosophy to do so. All right. I need you to read this. This is from North American Indians, the Lost Tribes of Israel, right? On President Thomas Jefferson. Hold on. Let me get the date that Thomas Jefferson became president here. A top Mason. One moment. Let me give you a date here. $1796. See that? The election was 1796. Let me get it here. Let me get the correct date here for you. The election of 1796. All right, that's one. This is interesting. Oh, he was vice president. Okay. 1801. Yes. From 1801 to 1809, Thomas Jefferson, a top Mason, founder of the New World America. Now, this was 1700s now. where now the president is sending out a decree to find out how they could control the North American Indians. So what did Thomas Jefferson say here?
It says President Thomas Jefferson wrote a brief letter to Meriwether Lewis and William Clark.
So he wrote a letter to other Masons, Meriwether Lewis, and who?
And William Clark.
And William Clark.
In which he instructed them to acquire what knowledge you can of the state of morality, religion, and information among them, speaking about the Indians, as it may better enable those who endeavor to, quote unquote, civilize and instruct them. In addition,
now, as you can see, Thomas Jefferson instructed these two men to find the state of morality, religion, amongst the North American Indians. So let's see what they came back with. Read that, what they came back with there.
It says, in all their rights which I have learned of them.
Now, this, what I'm mentioning here, came back from Ethan Smith, who took the history and information that was gathered by these two researchers, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. So what happens is this information comes back to Thomas Jefferson that these people are similar to the lost tribes in the Bible. Later on, in 1825, Ethan Smith takes their information and do further research on the North American Indians and find that they are the 10 tribes of Israel. Ethan Smith, who was a pastor of Vermont, a European pastor, took that information that was extrapolated from Clark and Lewis and did further research confirming their findings. What did he confirm?
It says, in all their rights which I have learned of them, there is certainly a most striking similitude to the Mosaic rituals.
In all their rights, there is a certainly most striking similitude to the Mosaic rituals. Mosaic rituals, Moses' laws and rituals and traditions. Read.
Their feast of first fruits.
They had a feast of first fruits, which are written of in Leviticus 23.
Feast of ingathering.
Feast of ingathering, which is written of in Leviticus 23.
Day of Atonement.
Day of Atonement, which is written in Leviticus 23.
Peace offerings.
Peace offerings.
Sacrifices.
Sacrifices.
They built an altar of stone before a tent covered with blankets. Within the tent they burned tobacco for incense, with fire taken from the altar of burnt offering. All who have seen a dead body are considered unclean 8 days.
If they see a dead body or if they touch a dead body, just like in the law, they're unclean for a week and can't come in to the congregation until the 8th day. That comes from the Mosaic law. How was the North American Indians following all these rites and these ceremonies to the T according to Scripture? Thousands of years separated from their homeland Israel. See? They were from the lost tribes, fulfilling 2 Esdras 13 and 39. Even President Jefferson knew this. President Jefferson was of the people who came against them as swift as the eagle flieth. See? So the presidents knew, the Masons knew. Okay? So now that they have some information getting back to Europe from this proclaimed Ethan Smith, who actually have a book out now. Well, the book was published in 1825. The book is called View of the Hebrews or the Tribes of Israel in America. And it was published by Ethan Smith. Now, I know the Mormons would like you to focus on Joseph Smith as the architect or the finder of the North Tribes of Israel, because that was another Masonic ploy. So that anytime you look into information concerning those people, it leads you to another dark hole and Mormonism, which is also a level of mysticism and sorcery. So the Masons set up purpose distractors who would distract this information or divert this information so that the Jewish people who were conquering them could stand as the only found tribe of Israel. Now there's more. All right. Now, who are we looking at here? I got his picture here. We're looking at Christoph Meiners, who died 1810, who was living during the same administration as Thomas Jefferson. This is the guy that came up with a new way of looking at the population and the genome of people. He started teaching that there was a division in race based on what geographical area they come from. When you hear the word Mongoloid and all that, here's the guy. His name is Christoph Meiners, who came up with that philosophy, which links directly to evolution. Now let's talk about him real quick, because he was the guy that would divert you from the information that was given to Thomas Jefferson. Before this guy, it was circulating around Europe that the North American Indians were from the lost tribes of Israel. And they knew exactly who the other brothers were. Right? The North American Indians knew they were Israel and knew who the other brothers were over there in the New World. So they came up with this. Here's a German philosopher, a German Greek named who? Christoph Meiners, who was hired to divert people from understanding this information concerning the lost tribes. Let's get some of this guy's philosophies. One moment. Here. Okay. Let's go and look up the word Mongoloid. Right? Mm-hmm. Read what it says on Mongoloid. It
says Mongoloid refers to a population that share certain phenotypic traits, such as fold and other physical traits common in most of Asia, including Central Asia, Southeast Asia, or East Asia, the Arctic, the Americas, and most of the Pacific Islands. In terms of population, they are the most dominant race, more than 1/3 of the human race.
Now, mind you, there's no such people in the Bible as Mongoloid. The word Mongoloid is a term that comes from the word Mongols, who were a group in Asia, Japhetic people, a group in Asia 1,000 years before Christ. So how can you now name some people Mongoloid that are really recent people? They're not Mongoloid. They're Japhet. But why are they coming up with these philosophical terms? These philosophical terms, which the Bible tells you to stay away from, leads to science, and it leads to a diversion from how the Most High said people would reprocreate on the earth and what people are who. It was further confusion. Now, let's show you the major proponents who pushed this Mongoloid ideology. Okay, and look under these pictures. It says Myers, Blitz, and Lexicon, right? Mm-hmm. These all three people who are under the pictures of these Mongoloids are all Jewish people. These Jewish people are coming up with these new genoterms to divert people from who the North American Indians were. Right? Let's go here. Here you go. The first use of the term Mongolian race was by who?
Christoph Meiners.
The first use of the term Mongolian race was by who?
Christoph Meiners.
Christoph Meiners. Now, for those who would go to Wikipedia to try to claim that North American Indians are Mongols, you need to scroll down in Wikipedia and look under the populations included, And it'll say the first use of the term Mongolian race was from who?
Christoph Meiners.
Here's the guy that gave you Mongols. Mongolian race. Here you go. During the same time that Thomas Jefferson found out that the North American Indians are from the lost sheep of Israel. Coincidence? And because they're over the press and over communications, they could actually roll this out as some major scientific breakthrough like they always do with their lies. And try to claim that they have found some new groundbreaking information. And usually their groundbreaking information brings questions to the validity of the Bible. Okay? So here he is, the first guy that came up with Mongolian race. I think we need to pull up this guy's spread. So we're on Wiki, since some people like to go to Wikipedia and pull out the fact that North American Indians are from Mongolians or Mongols. We're going to where they go, and let's click on Christoph Meiners. And let's see if we can pull out his dossier here. All right. Read Polygenism.
Meiners was a polygynist.
He was a polygynist.
He believed that each race had a separate origin.
He believed that each race had a separate origin, which was a lie, because all three races came from one man, Adam, later Noah. So first of all, this is the guy that came up with the Mongolian or the Mongol concept. So anyone that tell you that the North American Indians are Mongoloids have been deceived by this Masonic deceiver. Read it.
He was a very early practitioner of scientific racism.
He was a practitioner of scientific racism. And guess what? He's Jewish, right? So the last thing he need is North American Indians pop up as the lost tribe of Israel during his era, right? So now here's an expert that comes up with this new term, this new Geno term. Read.
Meiners studied the physical, mental, and moral characteristics of each race.
And
built a race hierarchy.
He built a what?
A race hierarchy.
He built a race hierarchy.
Built on the evidence that was considered common in scientific and anthropological circles at the time. Meiners split mankind into two divisions.
He split mankind into two divisions. I wonder what gave him this demon the authority to split them into two divisions. Read.
Meiners split mankind into two divisions, which he labeled the beautiful white race.
The beautiful white race.
And the quote-unquote ugly black race.
And the ugly black race. That's someone I'm definitely taking some key information concerning the North American Indians. I'm definitely holding this guy up as an authority. I'm going to believe everything he says. I'm definitely going to back Christoph Meiners' findings. Minimizing our worth. We're the children of Israel, and his whole philosophy was built on debasing everyone else and upholding the white race. But yet we'll use his terms in science today as groundbreaking, claiming that this guy was a true scientist that had some groundbreaking findings. When really, he was a starch demonic racist with an agenda of destroying the children of Israel, financed by the Masonic order. Now here's the guy that gave you, I think there's some Mongoloid people, and these people, and Caucasoid. Why? He had to break them into different divisions so that they can find something special in the Caucasoid and uphold themselves over everyone else. So he began this lie that's totally against the Bible. And let me show you the demon that came after him. Here you go. I want you to look at this guy. Because on the same page, if you see the Mongoloid, you can find this guy too. Let's get him too. His name is Johann Blumenbach, another Jewish German. Where is he here? Let me know if you see him. Let me pull him up here.
Scroll up. Scroll up.
We got him. On the same page as you can find the Mongols, which really don't exist because these Mongoloid people claiming that all people are Mongoloid that are Asian is totally ridiculous. Something they created to begin to tear down the truth concerning the Bible of Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Right? Check out what Johann Blumenbach wrote. And this happened right after Ethan Smith is going back to Europe telling everyone the similarities between the North American Indians and the people of the Mosaic Law in the Bible. Why? That was groundbreaking to say, listen, I have found the lost sheep of Israel. They couldn't have that. So right after the book came out, there was another demon, Mason, German Jew, they let loose on population as an authority to put emphasis on the lie that this guy created. So they paid another one who died in 1840. Another Mason. Let's see what he came up with. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. Now, don't forget, both of these guys is Revelations 2 and 9. Both of them is Revelations 2 and 9. Ye are of your father, the devil. Right? Revelations 2 and 9. I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. All right, synagogue of Satan here. All right, let's see what the synagogue of Satan got for you.
Joe.
Matter of fact, you know what? They're going to tell you exactly who the North American Indians are. All right, believe me, they'll tell you. Or will they throw a diversion? And mind you, these are people that's supposed to be Jews and believe in the Bible, right? No, they never told you believed in the Bible. They believed in the Bible. They just had you think that by default. They never told you they believed in the Bible. They don't. They're here to destroy the truth concerning it and destroy the people of the Bible. So now you have some prominent pastor going back into Europe raining on their parade. Telling people he actually found those that fit the prophecies of the lost sheep of the house of Israel in the New World. Can't have that. So now they have drummed up another devil to lie, which would have you believe science over the Bible. Let's read this so-called expert Johann Friedrich Blumenbach's dossier here. Or I wouldn't dossier. I would say his hit the spread on this guy. Read.
Johann Friedrich Blumenbach was a German physician.
A German physician. Don't forget science. The Bible tells us to stay away from them with their science philosophies, right? Read.
A naturalist.
A naturalist.
Physiologist and anthropologist. He was one of the first to explore the study of mankind as an aspect of natural history. His teachings,
they got a lot of firsts, don't they? They have a lot of firsts. You were the first for Rome to come up with these philosophies concerning the New World. They didn't need this information before they found America. Well, all of a sudden now they found America. They're coming up with all these new discoveries now. Why? Because they've discovered the lost tribes of Israel and need to hide that in future universities and future teachings. Because you cannot be the Jew in the authority of the people of the book when it's founded that the people in North America are really the real Jews. They're really the real Israelites. Now you are not an authority anymore, are you? So they had to lie. They had to lie. Now let's see what this lie is talking about. What he's saying here.
It says his teachings in comparative anatomy were applied to the classification of what he called human races, of which he determined there to be 5.
Go ahead.
It says Blumenbach was born in the
No,
house.
no. Let's get straight down to what he. Yeah. Let's get straight down to the meat of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blumenbach had 5 races. He got 5 skulls there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go down to where he talks about comparing us to monkeys. I think that's in here somewhere. Right here. In this dissertation.
It says, in his dissertation, Blumenbach mentioned a Simia troglodytes with a short description of the common chimpanzee. This dissertation was printed and appeared in September 1775, but only for internal use in the University of Göttingen.
Oh, now he's bringing the primate animal into the genome pool. So he's expanding on this demon's research. The guy that talked about, they created the mongoloid garbage and the Caucasoid being a superior race. All their findings, their groundbreaking findings, makes it where the Caucasian is the ultimate race when everything is said and done. Look what it says about the degeneration theory when the Bible says, beware lest anyone spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit. Listen to this theory he came up with. Read the generation theory.
It says, Blumenbach and other monogenous genus, such as Georges
Louis Leclerc,
Comte de Buffon, were believers in the degeneration theory.
What's the degeneration theory?
Of racial origins. Blumenbach claimed that Adam and Eve were Caucasian.
Hold up, Blumenbach claimed what?
That Adam and Eve were Caucasian.
He claimed what?
That Adam and Eve were Caucasian.
If Adam and Eve were Caucasian, how did black people get on the earth? Well, according to Blumenbach, we came through apes. Therefore, it was okay for not only for them to treat the North American Indians like dirt, they can now treat us like animals. These are the guys you're listening to that's telling you that the North American Indians are not from the tribes of Israel. See? Let's finish going. Let's go more. Let's go more.
Blumenbach claimed that Adam and Eve were Caucasian and that other races came about by degeneration.
By degeneration.
From environmental factors such as sun and poor dieting. For instance, he claimed Negroid pigmentation arose.
Negroid pigmentation. They go that Negroid.
Arose because of the result of the heat of the tropical sun.
See, through degeneration, we became black. The heat of the tropical sun. You buy this? These are the same people that came up with this Mongoloid Caucasoid theory. All around the same time, Thomas Jefferson found out that the North American Indians and those people over there were from the lost sheep of Israel. Okay? There's more. Let me show you. Here's your expert. Here's your daddy right here. Anybody that believe in the Mongoloid teaching, here's your daddy. There you go. Anyone want to say that North American Indians were Mongoloid? There you go. Here's your daddy. Here you go. Here's your daddy. There you go. You show your daddy right here. Okay? Keep on going.
States, while the cold wind caused the tawny color of the Eskimos.
Oh, how did the Eskimos... Hold up. Now, here's some top-breaking information from the Synagogue of Satan. I'm going to show you how the Eskimos look like they look right now, according to the scientists. Right? Read that.
While the cold wind caused the tawny color of the Eskimos, and the Chinese were fair-skinned compared to other Asian stocks because they kept mostly in towns protected from environmental factors. He believed that the degeneration could be reversed.
He believed that this degeneration that's going on with Negroes and other people could be reversed. Because we're degenerates. Right? It could be reversed if what?
If proper environmental control was taken and that all contemporary forms of man could revert to the original Caucasian race.
Oh my goodness. Here's some groundbreaking information. I need you to get that last part again. That how can we reverse this, brother? Because we're degenerates, according to this Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid theory. How could we be salvaged?
He believed that the degeneration could be reversed if proper environmental control was taken and that all contemporary forms of man could revert to the original Caucasian race.
Eventually, we can all revert back to the original Caucasoid race. Let me tell you, their education, everything they set up is to uphold themselves and to tear down the truth concerning God's people. So how can you now go to them with their theories and claim that the 10 tribes are not part of the 12 tribes of Israel? Brothers and sisters, think about it. There's only 3 families in this earth: Ham, Shem, and Japheth. It's not too hard to find Israel if you're looking at the prophecies. When you look at Deuteronomy 28 and look at those prophecies concerning the people who suffered by the hand of these people throughout the 4 corners of the earth, you can identify them easily. There's only 3 families. It's not hard. Now, I'll tell you why they want to ignore the fact that the 10 tribes are from the lost sheep of Israel, like the Indians and all that. It don't have anything to do with whether or not it's the truth. It has everything to do with those who are bringing the information. So they want to try to find something wrong. So that now, by default, that gives them some level of authority to say, well, listen, I proved that this was wrong. When really, what we receive is from the Most High. It's out of the scriptures. Now, let's wrap this up because I wanted to make sure I go into the mystery of the Gentiles real quick.
I can read this real quick.
Yes, sir.
This is from Babylon to Timbuktu. And this is Rudolf R. Winter, also going into Johann F. Blumenbach. This is page 21. Johann F. Blumenbach, a German, was the first to divide humanity on the basis of skin color. Up to this time, no such attempts had been made. His classification set up a color line to the detriment of later generations. Mr. Blumenbach classified 5 chief races of mankind: the Caucasian, the Mongolian, the Ethiopian, the American or American Indians, and Malayan. Moreover, he considered the Caucasian to be the original race. Blumenbach, the anthropologist, named the whites after the Caucasus Mountains. These mountains are situated between the Black and Caspian Sea, because he thought the purest white people originated there. Blumenbach was a racist, and so was J.A. Gobineau. A third man was named H.S. Chamberlain, wanted to advance the supremacy of the white Nordic race and its cultures.
They had intent behind their philosophies. It had nothing to do with bringing forth truth. Now I see people going on Wiki and grabbing Mongoloid and going into this and showing pictures and all that, and you've been deceived by the deceiver. When really, they only did this based on information that corroborated what we've been saying for years, that the North American Indians and those that were in America before the Europeans came are all from the lost sheep of the house of Israel. All of them. And they came with these imposters to smear Ethan Smith's work. Therefore, the conversation changed amongst scholastic individuals. It changed from the finding of the lost sheep of Israel to this newfound information concerning different types of races. It's the old sorcery switch and bait ploy they use, knowing that people have low attention spans. So instead of you focusing on the 10 tribes that were found and the similarity in cultures, between the lost sheep of Israel in the Bible and those people, we're now speaking of this new groundbreaking philosophy that leads back to white supremacy. Right? Now, let's go to the mystery of the Gentiles real quick, and then I'll answer questions for no more than 10 minutes, and then we have to wish you all Godspeed. Yeah. All right. One moment. One moment. Let's go to Ephesians 6, 18 and 19. One moment. All right. Let's go. Let's go to Ephesians 6. Start at 19.
Ephesians chapter 6, verse 19. And for me that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly, to make you know the mystery of the gospel.
To make you know the mystery of the gospel.
For which I am an ambassador in bonds, that therein I may speak boldly as I ought to speak. But that ye also may know my affairs and how I do.
Now, I'm going here to show you Paul had a mission which was a mystery, and it, to some degree, it becomes a mystery and a stumbling block to people until this day. The Christians teach that mystery is that the Most High would now open the door for Gentiles equal to Israelites. It's false. That's not the mystery. For Israelites out there that are teaching that the mystery is something outside of Paul's mystery, you are in error, and I'm going to go there in a moment. The mystery that Paul was dealing with here is that one day Christ would bring all tribes together under one. So the mystery was, the gospel was really focused with that mission. The mystery was, the focus of the gospel was to bring all 12 tribes back to the Most High. That's the mystery. And I'm going to prove that. That's the mystery of the Gentiles. When you look in the New Testament, the majority of the Gentiles you read all through the New Testament are Israelites. But you have Israelites who err concerning Cornelius. That's where they get confused at. They are right when they talk about the Gentiles who are Israelites all through the New Testament. But they are in error. Why? In order for the mystery to be fulfilled, All nations had to be taught. Why? Because Israel was scattered throughout all nations. And if you hold back the gospel from someone whom you think appears to be someone different, you may weed out your own brother. You may weed out the people whom the Most High focused on, whom the Most High sent Christ for. So that we don't be a wedge between Christ's gospel and his mission. We're not going to get in the way and distinguish what people we teach, when we'll end up weeding out our own, which is teach the gospel throughout the four corners. And those of the Gentiles who receive it, who are not of the bloodline, they will fulfill Amos 9 and 11 through 12 when it says that what? That there's a remnant of Edom and all the heathen which are called by the Most High name, who will make it in to serve the 12 tribes once they are together. That's the mystery of the gospel. Now, we get pushed back on every end. We get pushed back on the end of the Christians who just want to say that the mystery is that both people are equal, which is false. The mystery is the 12 tribes of Israel coming back as one. That was Paul's true mission. Why do you think he went to teach in the synagogues first before he was rejected? Okay? The Most High showed Paul that mystery. Now, I know I broke this down before, but I'm going to break it down once more in its total entirety to show you what that mystery is. And to go and to actually break that down, let's go to Genesis, the 48th chapter here.
Mm-hmm. There's also another one, Colossians 1 and 26 to 27.
Let's get it.
It says, even the mystery which have been hid from ages and from generations.
This mystery is the mystery of the gospel. The true mission of Christ. Read.
But now is made manifest to his saints.
That what?
But now is made manifest to his saints.
That now is made manifest to his what?
To his saints.
To his saints.
To whom the Most High would make known what is the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles.
Among the who?
Among the Gentiles.
Among the Gentiles. Now, I'm going to hit you all with something. I'm going to hit you all with something here. By us teaching the mystery of the gospel, we had a brother that's on the other side of the earth who, if you see him, you would probably think is Chinese. But this brother on the other side of the earth have brought our people, Judah and Benjamin and other of Israel, together to teach them, to bring them to the truth of who they are so that they can actually learn and become authorities in Scripture. Now, am I going to determine whether or not this guy who looked Chinese is Israel? It's not my job. I know that by teaching the gospel according to Christ, there's people whom we would not have been able to get to now know the truth through that brother. Now, if I would have cursed him out, called him names, if I would have just thought that he was somebody else, if we would have used the spirit of total ignorance concerning the mystery, then what about those people? I'm just giving you some physical examples. And I'm saying this because now brothers are going into this only Negro doctrine, don't realize that you are getting in the way of the gospel. You are getting in the way of the purpose Christ came. And you don't see the big picture because the only thing you're trying to do is try to prove whether or not the gathering of Christ Church is correct. And not seeing the overall mission the Most High have on this earth to awaken his people who are scattered amongst Chinese people, amongst other people. short-sightedness and ego have gotten in the way of the gospel. Let's show them the mystery. Let's go to Genesis.
Genesis chapter 48, verse.
And because of this, I'm going to tell you this. We broke this all the way down today. Because of this, if anyone come on any of our pages with this all Negro madness, they come on anything that we're teaching and try to bring that madness and try to bring something of a statue they found somewhere of madness that goes against the gospel of Christ, they will be blocked and ignored. If someone sent us email claiming that all black people are just the 12 tribes and not the rest that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, you are against the gospel and the mysteries of Christ, you will be blocked and ignored. We will not answer to it no more. This video is the answer to it all. And if it's not enough, pray for understanding. Let's go.
This is Genesis 48, 3 through 4. It says, And Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me, and said unto me, Behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make thee a multitude of people.
It's speaking of Joseph, who is Ephraim, whose son would be Ephraim over the 10 tribes. He would make them a what?
A multitude of people.
The fourth verse says he will make them a multitude of what?
Of people.
What do that multitude means right there in the Hebrew right there?
Multitude is quahal.
Which means what?
Assembly, company, congregation, multitude.
Multitude of what?
People.
Of people. Let's get that people right there. What that say?
Ayim, which means a people, specifically a tribe, as those of Israel. Hence, collectively, troops or attendants, flock, folk, men, nation, or people.
So that would be a multitude of nations. A multitude of nations, which breaks down to a multitude of people. Read it.
Genesis 48, 18 through 19.
That's the one I want. Read.
And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he.
Talking about Ephraim, read.
And his seed shall become a multitude of nations.
A multitude of what?
A multitude of nations.
Multitude of, and what did that nation say?
Gawayah, which means a foreign nation, hence a Gentile.
A what?
A Gentile.
A Gentile, a multitude of the Gentiles. That's the mystery in what? Romans the 11th chapter, where it says all Israel shall be saved. Let's go to Romans 11. So when it says multitude of nations, it's speaking of the 10 tribes. Let's get there. Let's go to Romans 11.
Romans 11 and 25.
Read it.
For I would not be ignorant that ye should be, I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery.
Of this mystery.
Lest ye should be wise in your own conceits.
That you should be wise in your own conceits. That means you will start making up things and ignore Christ's true mission, which was to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Read.
That blindness in part is happened to Israel.
Blindness in part has happened to Israel. It's speaking of the northern kingdom.
Until the fullness of the Gentiles.
Until the multitude of nations. Same Hebrew word when you link it up from the Greek to the Hebrew in Genesis 48. Until the multitude of nations, which is Ephraim. Ephraim was over the 10 tribes. Read.
Until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in.
Until they be come in.
And so all Israel shall be saved.
Not just Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. All Israel. The northern and southern kingdom. That's why it tells you in Romans 11, when you read up before that, that the Gentiles who was given the riches, that was grafted into a tree contrary to nature, that they were not supposed to boast against the natural branches, lest they'll be cut off and the original people of the tree be grafted back in again. The Gentiles have boasted, and now the northern kingdom is coming back to their original tree. That's the gospel. And those of the Gentiles that don't boast, you fulfill the part of Cornelius and the Gentiles that followed Christ, that will actually serve Israel under Christ in the new kingdom. Gets no clearer than that. Gets no clearer. So I hope that information today have solidified that whole thing concerning the mysteries of the gospel. The mystery of the Gentiles is the fact that Christ came to gather both sides, the northern and southern kingdom, into one, as it was before the sins of Solomon, so that he can be king over all of Israel like David was. He would take the throne of David. The mistake Israelites are making, they're claiming that Cornelius is the embodiment of the northern and southern kingdom coming together, which is wrong. Cornelius have nothing to do with that. That's totally wrong. All right? So the mystery of the gospel is that the teachings are to bring all of Israel, physical Israel, not spiritual Israelites, physical Israel, all 12, back under one king. That's the mystery. Even though they're scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And guess what? Ephraim is not going to look just like Judah. It ain't going to happen. The 10 tribes are not, because it was a prophecy that they would actually look different. Let's go there where it says he mixed himself amongst the people. And after that, I'll answer questions, 5 minutes max, and then I have to wish you all Godspeed.
Hosea chapter 7 verse 8.
Read.
Ephraim, he have mixed himself among the people.
He have mixed himself amongst the people. So the mystery is to what? To get that multitude of nations, which is Ephraim, which are over the 10 tribes, back to Christ. But he mixed himself amongst the people. So if he mixed himself amongst Asians, wouldn't some of the children that are Israelites look like Asians? Should you ignore them because they don't look Negroid? Should you claim that they're not Israelites because they don't look Negroid? So if some of the 10 tribes mix themselves with the white man and look Caucasian, should you ignore them and not give them the gospel because they may be white? That's you getting in the way of the gospel. That's reverse racism, and that's getting in the way of Christ's mission. But guess what? Be very careful. When you trying to attack and go against us, be careful that you don't trample on the gospel that came from Christ. Be very careful, because if you find yourself fighting against the Most High, that's a fight you definitely will lose. Regardless of what you feel about teachers. Be careful not to trample on the gospel. If you don't know, it's better to say nothing. Read.
Ephraim is a cake not turned.
Ephraim is a cake not turned. A cake not turned is light on one side, dark on the other. Ephraim has mixed himself amongst the people. So all of the 10 tribes which Ephraim led are not going to look exactly how they looked 3,000 years ago. Okay? They were scattered. They were scattered before us. So get off that chest a Negro kick. You are off if you're teaching that. It's not just about people with Negroid features. That's not the gospel and mystery of Christ. And I hope this resonates so that the true gospel can continue to be taught. And if anyone that's teaching anything contrary, teach that someplace else. We welcome you to deal with that someplace else. We will continue to uphold the gospel and teach Christ's word throughout the four corners of the earth. With that, I'm going to say shalom.